Welcome back to Liberty Man. Today we're going to do another segment on the Supreme Judge of the world. And what we're going to look at today is kind of comes about after Samson, not too long after it. But we're going to look at Dagon this time. Remember, Samson destroyed the temple of Dagon and over 3,000 people by himself. But here is the opposite side of the spectrum and how even the pagan gods prevailed against the people who claimed to be worshipers of the one true God. So that might surprise you right there. So we're going to, as usual, we're going to share a screen. We're going to go to the original documents, and I'm going to try to read through these quickly, because there's quite a bit here from the Bible, believe it or not. And we're going to look at the course of human events with human people going to the final appeal of God be God. In the Holy Bible, in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 4, in verse 1, the word of Samuel came unto all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel. And when they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. That's a pretty good whooping right there. And when the people were coming to the camp, the elder of Israel said, Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us this day before the Philistines? See, they didn't say, they're not saying, how did the Philistines beat us? It was, why did God allow us to be smitten? So their solution is, let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it comes among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. So the people went to Shiloh, that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwells between the cherubims, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came unto the camp, all Israel shouted with great shout, so that the earth rang out. Now, one thing I want to point out here. Yes, God gave the design to Moses for the ark of the covenant. There's a movie about this called Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's based on this story right here, believe it or not. Because in that movie, the Germans were trying to find the Ark of the Covenant, because they believed the story that if the Ark of the Covenant was in the camp, it had this mystical power that would overcome their enemies. And Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, foiled their plot. What people today fail to understand, and obviously back then, is that Ark of the Covenant was just a physical thing. Yes, God designed it. He said, I want you to put the covenant in the ark so you can save it, so you can carry it around with you everywhere you go, and people can be reminded of how you got here. The power was not in the box. The power is in the firm reliance of the people in the protection of divine providence. and not in the ark or the statue or whatever you want to call it, the icon, as we shall see. Verse 6. Verse 5, we'll go back to that. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with great joy, so that the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What mean the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews?" And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God is come into the camp." And they said, "Woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing before." This is the first time that the children of Israel had brought the Ark of the Covenant with them to the battle. Now look what they say about it in verse 8. "Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods?" Plural. They understand these are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. This is one of the things that I'm going to do a side note here, just so you understand this verse. And we're going to do a teaching on this one. But when Moses confronted Pharaoh with the 10 different plagues, the Egyptians and everybody around there thought that it was 10 different gods that were taking on 10 different gods of the Egyptians. And the Egyptians lost every time. But God had told Elohim, the creator, had told Moses, he says, "Who am I supposed to tell Pharaoh sent me here?" And then God said, "I am that I am." Too bad that this is such a bad English translation from the Hebrew. What it should be is, "I will become what I will become." The verbs aren't conjugated correctly. Simple little mistake, but how many of you know Hebrew? I don't. I mean, I can translate it, but I can't read it. I will become whatever I need to become to do whatever I need to do. And so that's why there are the 10 Jehovah titles: Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah our banner, Jehovah our host, the God of armies, the God is my banner, my battle flag, my tent, my covering, my healer, my deliverer, all these different things. So you had 10 redemptive names of Jehovah that had never been revealed before to man. So he became what he needed to become to overcome each of the 10 idols or gods of the Egyptians. So this is a whole other story right here about the supreme judge of the world going to trial 10 times to show them the power, the ultimate power of God versus the pagan gods, the one true God versus the numerous pagan gods. He took them down one at a time. Little side note, verse 9. "Be strong and quit yourselves like men." This makes it sound like, quit being like men and run. But this is another one of those words. It means stand up. Don't believe me? Let's just go there and look at the Strongs. Verse 9, quit. I don't like it when people to become, come to pass, exist, happen, fall out. To be in existence, come to pass. Okay, so become a man. Don't whine about it. Become a man. Be strong. Become a man. Become yourselves like men. Quit yourselves like men is become like men. O ye Philistines, that you be not servants, be men unto the Hebrews, that you be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent. And there was a very great slaughter, and there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. They had the ark of God with them. The Israelites did. And yet they were slaughtered, 30,000. And the ark of God was taken. So we're going to see here that by having the relic, having the statue, or whatever you want to call it, the carving, the idol that represented the one true God, they thought that their god, Dagon, had won the battle. We'll see how it plays out. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent and with earth upon his head. And when he came to Eli, now Eli is the prophet. When he came to Eli, when he came, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside. Sat upon a seat by the wayside, watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. When the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, what means the noise of this tumult? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim that he could not see. Well, no kidding. They didn't have eyeglasses back then. Eli, 98 years old. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, what is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter among the people. And thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken. And it came to pass, when he made mention of the ark of God, that Eli fell off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died. For he was an old man and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. I mean, this shocked the prophet so bad that he fell over backwards and snapped his neck. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for his pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. Phinehas' wife went into childbirth and died of hemorrhaging. And they named the kid Ichabod, because they believed that God had left Israel because the ark of God was taken. Keep that in mind, folks. They believed that God was not on their side because the relic was not on their side. And the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. Verse 4, and when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor any that came into Dagon's house tread upon the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day. Okay, so you got idol versus idol. That's the way the Philistines looked at it, and that's the way the children of Israel were looking at it. The ark of God was this ornamental box that was gilded in gold and all kinds of jewels and all these things. It had the Ark of the Covenant in there, which was the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, plus the writings of Moses. The 5 books of Moses and the parchments were in there by this time. But when the Philistines put the Ark of God in the house of Dagon, which is they're taking the Israelites' God idol, because that's the way they thought, and put it in the temple of Dagon, that is showing to the world that their god Dagon had captured and defeated their enemy and captured the gods of Israel, which they thought was multiple gods because of what had gone on in Egypt. They just saw that. But when they went back in the temple the next day, Dagon's flat on his face. Ain't nobody been in there. Those pagan temples were guarded to the teeth with the most ruthless guards that you've ever seen, because they're protecting the gods. Well, they just set it back up again. Well, maybe, whatever, this great statue that we built just somehow maybe fell over on his face on its own. But the second day when it fell, it knocked the head and the hands off of it. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what the statue looked like. But if the statue was like this in some ways and it fell over, you can see how it knocked the hands off of it. And the only thing that was left of the statue itself was the stump. And it says nobody went in that temple ever again. To this day, we're reading this today. But the hand of the Lord, the hands of the idol broke off, right? Well, the Ark of the Covenant's got no hands. It's got to be toted around by people. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and smote them with hemorrhoids, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. Opal, Ophel, Hill Mound, Fort Strong Hill, tumor or hemorrhoid. See, I did not make it up, people. I knows my Bible and I knows the languages. Let's see. Let me get here with this. It messes it up. Here we go. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and smote them with hemorrhoids, even Ashdod and the coast thereof, all the surrounding areas and cities, the coast, the borders of Ashdod. And the men of Ashdod saw that it was so. They said, when they saw that it was so, they said, the ark of the God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us and upon Dagon our God. They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? And they said, let the ark of the God of Israel be carried about unto Gath. And they carried the ark of God of Israel about thither. So they moved it somewhere else. And it was so that after they had carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city. Which city? Gath. This is where Goliath came from. It was so that after they carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city, that with a very great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great, and they had hemorrhoids in their secret parts. Therefore they sent the ark of God to Ekron, and it came to pass as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, they have brought about the ark of God of Israel to us to slay us and our people. I guess they didn't have preparation H back then, because they were scared to death of getting hemorrhoids. Probably been a severe case if God did it. Let your imagination go wild, and all it says is that they were scared to death and everybody else was getting hemorrhoids. 1 Samuel 5:11, and they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of God of Israel and let it go to his own place, that it slay us not and our people. There was a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there. And the men that died not were smitten with hemorrhoids, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. These people are crying. These are the pagans that are crying out to God, leave us be. And the ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. That's a long time. And the Philistines called the priests and the diviners, saying, what shall we do to the ark of the Lord? Tell us wherewith we shall send it to his place. See, they called the priests and the diviners. These are the ones that made sacrifices to the gods, and the diviners would be the prophets of the gods, who would receive spiritual messages from the spirit world and tell it to the people. And also with the bones and the tarot cards and all those other things that you use for divinations. And they said, verse 3, if you send away the ark of God of Israel, send it not empty, but in any wise return him a trespass offering. Then you shall be healed, and it shall be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. Their own God, their own priests and diviners told the people, you better send a trespass offering to beg for forgiveness, because you're not going to be healed if you don't do it. And it'll be known why his hand isn't removed from you. Then said they, what shall be the trespass offering which we shall return to him? They answered, 5 golden hemorrhoids. What it says. Don't believe me, we got to go back and look. Same thing, opal, tumor, or hemorrhoid. Verse 4, then they said, what shall be the trespass offering? We shall return to him. They answered, 5 golden emerods and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on you all and on your lords. So here you see 5 and 5, 10. Why? Because they're thinking they're having to appease 10 different gods. Back to Egypt, remember? There's a reason there was 5 and 5. Wherefore you shall make images of your hemorrhoids and images of your mice that mar the land, and you shall give glory unto the God of Israel. These are the pagan priests and diviners telling their people not to pray to their God. They're telling them to pray to the God of Israel. Peradventure, he will lighten his hand from off you and from off your gods and from your land. Wherefore then do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts when he had wrought wonderfully among them? They did not let the people go. And they departed. Look what happened to Egypt when they didn't let the people alone, when they didn't let the Israelites alone. Look at what happened to Egypt. That's what's happening here, you stubborn fools. Instead of giving the thing back, you keep moving it from temple to temple to temple, and all these other cities are getting infected. You got to send it back, and you got to send it back with bonuses. Now, therefore, make a new cart and take 2 milch kine. These are cows that are full of milk, dairy cows, on which there hath come no yoke. See, they weren't oxen, they were milk cows. And tie the kine to the cart and bring their calves home from them. See, they're milking. They have milk. And take the ark of the Lord, lay it upon the cart, and put the jewels of gold, which you return him for a trespass offering, in a coffer by the side thereof, and send it away that it may go. And see if it goes by the way of his own coast to Beth Shemesh, when he hath done us this great evil. But if not, then we shall know that it is not in his hand that smote us. It was a chance that happened to us. So here they're rolling the dice. Which way is it going to go? If it goes this way, we'll know it was God that smote us. If it goes this way, we'll know that it's just a coincidence and this is not a battle of the gods. And the men did so and took 2 milch kine, tied them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home. They laid the ark of the Lord upon the cart and the coffer with the mice of gold and the images of their emerods. I don't want to go there with what that imagery was. But see here, they took the calves from the milk from the moms. If you know anything about dairy farming, a cow's udders fill up with milk. And if they don't feed or be milked, it is very, very painful for them. On a dairy farm, the cows will come to the barn when it's time to get milked. You don't have to go out and round them up. They want to be milked and they're coming to be milked. Or in the same thing with the calves, they're going to move in a certain way that their individual calf is going to recognize that mother, it is time for you to come eat and it is time now. So that's how they knew with these milk cows, what direction those cows were going to go. Are they going to come back and feed their calves like nothing happened? Or is God going to break all the rules of nature? Remember, laws of nature and nature's God. A milking cow must be milked. She will do whatever she has to do to be milked. Is she going to defy her own nature and go back to Jerusalem? Or is she going to stay home and get milked? No, there's a lot to that, but that's what it is. And they laid the ark of the Lord upon the cart and the coffer with the mice of gold and the images of their emerods. And the kine took the straight way to the way of Bethlemesh and went along the highway, lowing as they went, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them unto the border of Bethshemesh. They're lowing because they want their calves to come eat, but they're not turning away from their job. And they of Bethshemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. And they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark and rejoiced to see it. And the cart came into the field of Joshua, a Bethshemite, and stood there. And there was a great stone, and they clave the wood of the cart and offered the kine a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the coffer that was with it, wherein the jewels of gold were, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Bethshemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrifices the same day unto the Lord. Then the five lords of the Philistines, and when the five lords of the Philistines had seen it, they returned to Ekron the same day. And these are the golden emerods which the Philistines returned for a trespass offering unto the Lord. For Ashdod 1, for Gaza 1, for Ashkelon 1, for Gath 1, and for Ekron 1. Each city sent an image of their God. Follow me? They each sent an image of their God to appease the one true God. And the golden mice, according to the number of the cities of the Philistines, belonging to the five lords, both of the fenced cities and the country village, even unto the great stone of Abel, whereon they set down the ark of the Lord, which stone remaineth unto this day in the field of Joshua the Bethshemite. And he smote the men of Bethshemesh, because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. Even he smote of the people 50,000 threescore and 50,070 men. And the people lamented because the Lord had smitten many of the people with great slaughter. And the men of Bethshemesh says, who is able to stand before this holy Lord God? And whom shall he go up from us? And they sent messengers to the inhabitants of this other place that I can't pronounce, saying, the Philistines have brought again the ark of the Lord. Come ye down and fetch it up to you. Come and get this fool thing away from us. So we're going to go back here for a moment. We're going to go back here and we're going to look at Dagon one more time. We saw what Samson did to Dagon. We saw what the ark itself did to Dagon. And now we're going to look at what happened to another man when it comes to Dagon. And this one, this is after David had defeated Goliath. And then they slaughtered, the children of Israel had slaughtered the Philistines. These Philistines are some stubborn people. They keep coming back again. And this battle, Saul was killed. King Saul was killed. Remember what David did when he killed Goliath? He cut Goliath's head off and he brought it back to the city to prove that the gods had ruled in their favor. So and it came to pass on the morrow after the battle, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And when they had stripped him, they took his head and his armor and sent unto the land of the Philistines round about to carry tidings unto their idols and to their people. And when all of Jabesh Gilead, and they put his armor, Saul's armor, and they put Saul's armor in the house of their gods and fastened his head in the temple of Dagon. And I thought Dagon was, nobody went back in there again. But this is Chronicles, so I'm not sure of the time frame in there. But here, Dagon's back at work. And when all Jabesh Gilead heard, what did they do? They put Saul's armor in the house of their gods, and they fastened his head in the temple of Dagon. And when all Jabesh Gilead heard all that the Philistines had done to Saul, they arose, all the valiant men, and took away the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons, and brought them to Jabesh, and buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days. They went and got their headless bodies and their naked bodies. So Saul died for his transgressions, which he committed against the Lord, and against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore God slew him and turned the kingdom unto David, the son of Jesse. So back to the Declaration of Independence. We go before the throne of God for the rectitude of our intentions. What did the children of Israel do? They brought the box, the ark, and thought that the power was in the box and not in the creator spirit God in heaven. They got whooped. Now, they did capture the ark, put it in the temple, and Dagon fell on his face. Go back the next day, Dagon falls and breaks apart, beheads the god. Remember, beheads Goliath, beheads Saul, bring the head back to the temple. But here, in both instances, the children of Israel and their leaders and their rulers put more faith in idolatry, in the ark itself, the idol, the thing made with hands, and not the creator God that gave them the design for the ark. Same thing here with Saul. Saul sought divination. We won't get into that today, but he lost it all, even his head, because he had committed transgressions against the Lord. So if we want God to bless us, then we have to conform to the laws of nature and nature's God. I've said this many, many times when I do speeches on the Mississippi Constitution. It starts out with we, the people in Mississippi, grateful to Almighty God and invoking his blessing on our work. That's going to that throne of God for answers to prayer. God's not going to bless you if you are doing things contrary to his written word. Even today, his hands are tied to bless you if you are an unrepented person that seeks guidance outside of what he wrote down. Is he full of mercy? Yeah. Samson made some bad mistakes, but he repented and he asked God for help, and God was there. Saul never repented. He lost it all. But going to the supreme judge of the world is the ultimate judge, and we want annuit coeptus. We want him to rule in our favor, not like Saul, because Saul kept begging for other people to forgive his sins instead of repenting and going to God. Anyway, Saul transgressed against the laws of nature and nature's God, and God did not rule in his favor. We declare to the world that we went to the throne of God with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence and annuit coeptus. God ruled in our favor. I know that's a lot to grasp in one video, folks, but that's the truth. And we have got to get back there as a nation. We have got to get back to that firm reliance together. Firm reliance on the protection of divine providence so that God will rule in our favor. God bless.